Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Now, United Nations Rapporteur on Poverty has in recent times reported on extreme poverty in countries including Ghana, China, Mauritania and the USA. At the end of this week, Philip Alston will conclude a 12-day fact-finding mission to the UK to see for himself what it means to survive on very little money in modern-day Britain. Here, at a standing invitation from the government, he is hearing accounts of food banks, benefit delays and low pay. Jackie Long has been to the northeast of England and to Essex to meet some of the people for whom making ends meet is a difficult and daily struggle.
Behind even the loveliest views of Britain's towns and cities, life is lived under a harsher light. 14 million people in the UK are in poverty, according to the Joseph Rowntree Foundation. 4 million are children. And it is they, the UN Special Rapporteur Philip Alston, has come to see.
I'm a mother. I should be able to look after my family properly, not have to beg in these places for food.
In the West End of Newcastle, this food bank supplies food to around 42,000 people every year. They've seen demand rise here by 20% in the past 6 months.
Buddy, drink. Good boy.
For Anita Holmes, it was a lifeline. With 3 children to feed and waiting for her first payment of the benefit Universal Credit, she ended up meeting Carol, a volunteer, after contacting the food bank online in the middle of the night. What made you contact the food bank at that time of night?
I'd sat and thought about it for about a week or something, and you've got pride, you know what I mean? You don't want to have to ask for help. I had nothing, literally nothing. Couldn't get help from nowhere. Rang the door, nothing. Wouldn't give you advance payment. Not their problem. Go to the council. Kind of the council have got now. There's just no help. No, if you lose your job and you go on Universal Credit, you're knackered. They just don't help you.
Anita and her children have to use the food bank once a month.
Tell them about Riley when he came to food bank and he got that pasta.
Oh, he was so excited, wasn't he? Yeah.
So he's 7?
Yeah, just little things, isn't it?
And then it's Carol, who's only come to support Anita, who begins to cry.
If you saw him, it's the most gorgeous little boy, and it was just his little face. You'd think it was Christmas morning and he had 3 pasta dishes in front of him.
And that's what he was delighted with?
Absolutely thrilled. And I just looked and I thought, is that all it takes to put a smile on your face? It shouldn't happen. He should, you know, that should be normal for him.
Why does it upset you so much?
It upsets me so much because I've been that close. And if it wasn't for my mum, my friends...
That's my martial lifesaver.
But I never got to where Anita is, but it was days away.
Jaywick in Essex was also one of the stops on Professor Alston's tour. Twice deemed the most deprived neighbourhood in Britain. Just this month, a picture of the village used by Republican campaigners in the US as a vision of economic Armageddon. The council say things are improving, but there is a long list of needs here. And people were glad to make their case in front of the UN Rapporteur in a packed meeting hall last night.
As soon as I moved into Jaywick, I was put into a bubble. I had lost friends and I was labelled Jaywick scum. Most of the time I was scared to tell people that I lived in Jaywick because people always stereotyped it as a place of nothing, a place of crime and a place of drugs. I couldn't even put Jaywick on my CV because I was scared of being turned away.
Then Erin, a former journalist married to an NHS manager, told how she had a brain hemorrhage, aged just 30.
I needed full-time care, as did my child. My husband was forced to give up work, and he became my full-time carer. I have been forced to live on virtually full-time bed rest for the last 10 years. Suddenly, we were not a middle-class, 2-income household. We were living on disability benefits.
now needing a private rented home. Like many benefit claimants, she's finding landlords won't let to them.
I do not know where I will be putting my 12-year-old son to bed soon. And I can think of no other minority group that landlords are legally allowed to ban from their properties outright.
Tracy Whittenstall was one of the people who met Philip Alston when he was in Newcastle.
At one point they came to the house with an eviction notice. And at that point I was just like, do what you want. Yeah. Like, I've got nothing else to give.
Tracy, who lives with her 2 sons, says the problem with Universal Credit when she first transferred over left her waiting nearly 10 weeks for payment.
When people say, you know, I had nothing, there are those who just don't believe that it was nothing. They say, well, they don't mean nothing, but...
No, literally nothing. The payments I received were child benefit weekly, which was £34.40, and that's what we lived on for those 10 weeks. £34.40 a week for a family of 3. It was bread or bus fare. It was milk or bus fare. You know, I didn't have cups of tea because the little one wanted a glass of milk. That is, you'd never think that is how people would live, but that's what I live like. I was forced to live like that. I had no choice.
And how important do you think this mission by the UN Rapporteur is? Do you think it's important?
I think it's very important. I think it's important for people like me that someone is fighting a little bit in your corner. I've said it all along that it's kind of just get on with it. It's someone else's problem. If you're hungry, go to a food bank. No one's that hungry. Yes, they are. Yes, they are. Go and have a look.
The rapporteur will deliver his assessment on the extent of poverty at the end of the week. Whether the government agrees is another matter. Today, the Department for Work and Pensions said there are now 1 million fewer people living in absolute poverty compared with 2010, and that Universal Credit is supporting more people to get back into work.
Jackie Long with that report. Well, I'm joined now from Westminster by the Conservative MP Giles Watling, who is MP for Clacton, which includes Jaywick. We saw in that report by Jackie. And with me here in the studio is Dalia Ben Galim, Director of Policy at Gingerbread, a charity that supports single-parent families. Welcome to you both. Let me start with you, Giles Watling. Are you at all embarrassed that the UN Rapporteur on Poverty and Human Rights has felt it necessary to come to your constituency?
No, on the contrary, I'm delighted he came, and it was good to meet him yesterday and be able to put the positive case for Jaywick forwards. Because you have to remember that Jaywick is not a recent problem. It's been there since in between the war years, when it was built as a holiday village. And gradually it became used by other people as time went on. And it's been one, I admit, absolutely, it's been a thorn in our side for a long time, and there are problems there that need addressing.
Is there a positive case for Jaywick?
There's a very positive case for Jaywick, and as doubtless Professor Alston would have found, it has a very strong sense of community. The people there are amazing. It has the most beautiful beaches probably anywhere in the district, and it's on the up. The council's bought property and is building 10 more houses. It's bought 60 hectares of land, and there have been applications to build 4-storey flats which are flood-proof.
And yet, 14 million people living in poverty in this country, a third of them children. We're still the 6th largest economy. We have so many big social issues to deal with, and yet we seem to be paralysed by Brexit and therefore unable to deal with them.
Well, I don't think it's being paralysed by Brexit so much. I think there are issues. We've been through a period of great trauma when we had the big financial turndown in 2008, and we're pulling ourselves out of that. There is light at the end of the tunnel. But the whole point is we have to create the wealth, and if we can create the wealth, we can help these people.
Right.
And listening to that report, it is quite distressing, but we must reach out and help the people. We must create the safety net.
But we're also creating some of our own problems, or rather the government is Universal Credit, as we heard in that report, as we keep hearing, is actually contributing to poverty in this country.
Well, I don't agree. Universal Credit, it's a transition. And we went down to the job centre recently. DWP workers there are delighted with the way it works in Clacton, and they find it easier to administrate. They say on the whole they have happy clients. But here's the issue. There have been glitches, that's admitted. It's being rolled out in Clacton now, and the government's injecting another £4.5 billion to make sure those glitches don't happen, and they shouldn't. OK. Dalia Ben Galim, you just heard what he had to say there, the MP for Clacton. Do you buy what he's saying?
Well, I mean, I certainly think that there's positive cases in some places. I mean, to say that universal credit is being plagued by glitches, I think is really problematic. What we hear at Gingerbread from single parents is it's not glitches and it's not the teething problems. We find a system where single parents are plunged into debt when they move on to universal credit, waiting a kind of minimum of 5 weeks. Childcare costs they need to pay up front. Many parents are too scared to move into work because the work that's on offer is low pay, it's precarious, it's 0-hour contracts, and so we find that real balance very difficult.
And the problem is we're dealing with the working poor, aren't we? A lot of these households have got jobs, they're just not paying enough money.
Absolutely. So for single parents, we're seeing record high employment rates, and a third of those families are living in poverty. It's 2018, that really shouldn't be the case when you're in work and doing everything the government expects for you, that your children are in poverty.
And yet unemployment is going down. Is it better to be poor or working poor?
Well, I think it's the quality of work. So I mean, neither of those situations are good, but I think...
But wages could at least go up.
I think, exactly. Wages can go up and the system can be better. The system can support families in a much more productive way and a much more constructive way. And at the moment, universal credit is undermining its objective of supporting single parents and many others into work. It's doing the opposite.
Do you think it was right for the UN rapporteur to come to this country to look at poverty? I mean, you know, there are plenty of other issues to be looking at around the world when it comes to poverty.
There are certainly plenty of other issues, but I think poverty is a real blind spot for many governments. I think poverty, in terms of, you know, you see a very high employment rate, you're right, but what you see underneath that is that the quality of work is poor and wages have stagnated.
Giles Watling, I mean, do you think it's right for the UN rapporteur to come to this country, I'm not just talking about your constituency, but to come to this country when he could be going to other parts of the developing world, not the developed world?
Well, I think it's absolutely right for him to be coming to this country because, as you quite rightly point out, we're the 5th or 6th largest economy in the world, and we need to look at where the cracks are. But going back to the point of universal credit, the whole point of universal credit is to taper out and help people back into work. There's nothing like having your own job, earning your own money, and the sense of satisfaction that gives you. We're helping people to get there, and that's a wonderful place to be.
And yet if you are working, if you have a job that pays you so little and is so precarious, that's not exactly an enviable position to be in, is it?
No, I absolutely agree. I spent 50 years as an actor, and I absolutely understand that situation. But having said that, I really think that the whole point is to help people into work, so people should not go without in order to get work. This whole thing of universal credit is to help people stand up on their own 2 feet and feel that pride that having a good job gives.
A debate for another day, I fear. Giles Watling, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Ben Gallium, thanks for coming in.